Yola, it's Jenna. I apologize. I am in a construction area. Nashville has grown extremely big in the last couple of years. So there's constant construction, constant road work. And for someone recording a podcast, not very fun. So yes, this is a podcast. This is episode 4. The name of the podcast is Finding Ourselves in the Ashes, which is about... Thank you very much, helicopter. Just give it a minute. I seriously hope they're not trying to find an escaped prisoner, because that would be an odd time to be making a podcast. So the main topic is personal growth and personal development, becoming a better you. So we'll be talking about all kinds of topics that are going to lead up to that. I am hoping to make maybe about 75 of these. And then, if it catches on and we have enough listeners, to make kind of an essay format book, which would be called Finding Ourselves in the Ashes, 75 essays to change your life. Something like that, So, today we are discussing recovering from a broken heart, and I almost feel like these episodes sort of intertwine and build on each other. If you remember my narcissistic caregivers episode, my bullying episode, we're trudging on the same territory here. It will overlap. So what about the woman or man or person in abusive relationships, or inside of an abusive relationship? Let's take it from the top. Let's rewind. Okay. It's been said that it takes a woman, so this is referring to women, not men, an average of 7 times to leave their abusers. I don't know the statistics on men, but that is for women 7 times. It's also been said that a woman leaves a man mentally before she does physically. There is a book that I hope to sit down and pay attention to and read, called Fling by the Irish author Joseph Murray. And this book explores falling out of love with your spouse and that leading to infidelity. The book also kind of chronicalizes what led to that couple being in that situation was that they were having difficulty conceiving a child. If that's something that you and your partner struggle with, it might be a good book to read, because it does talk about that. And it's noteworthy that grief and grieving is not limited to losing life, but also it could be losing a job, it could be a personal relationship ending, or that relationship slowly fading out. The phrase ghosting comes to mind, or even facing rejection from someone you had romantic feelings for. So when we talk about grief, the 5 stages of grief are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Acceptance is going to be what I'm going to discuss more, because when it comes to denial, anger, bargaining, and depression, I feel like we do those very well. I feel like we could teach a class on all of them. Acceptance, not so much. If you were to diagram grief, I would pick a funnel. And when I say diagram, I mean a visual representation, kind of a visual metaphor, if you will. So we're looking at a funnel. The wide mouth of it would be surrounded by denial, anger, bargaining, and depression. And when healing would pour through that funnel, the less wide end would be all of those emotions ultimately leading to acceptance. Thus, the path to healing has a wide berth of negative emotions that lead to finally feeling peace. So, how do you accept loss? There's a lyric to a Trevor Hall song called "You Can't Rush Your Healing," and the lyric is, "Darkness has its teachings." The implication being that learning to accept loss and heartache is learning to accept ourselves. We should never think we loved the wrong friend or significant other or had a crush on the wrong person, because what that taught us is that we have the capacity to love. We have so much love to give and so much to give in love. And sometimes we can lose a person who makes us become a better version of ourselves, but that doesn't mean we give up on getting better. Because maybe the thing we wanted so badly was taken away or not given back because something or someone better is coming. When I dealt with rejection recently, it actually brought me joy and relief, which I know you're thinking, like, where is that in the 5 stages of anything? I'll explain. Because those dreams I put off to impress and chase a guy were now accessible. The song Lose You to Love Me by Selena Gomez explores being in a toxic relationship and how letting it go brings back the self-love lost in that relationship. And, of course, our drag mother, RuPaul, is famous for saying, if you don't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else? Similarly, I should really write down words that I can actually pronounce, because I can write them, but pronouncing them is different. I digress. It's been said the best revenge is your glow up to be happy and healthy. Articles to do with breakups recommend self-care, exercise, finding new hobbies, and getting involved in previous hobbies. I will say, like, sweetheart, if you want to binge TV or binge video games, that's not a hobby. That is like distracting yourself from what you're going through. Which, like, yeah, it's nice to have a distraction, but there are so many more productive things that you could be doing, you know, like needlecraft or going to the gym. Like, there are things that are a little bit more hands-on that engage your mind and or your body. So a big recommendation is disconnecting from social media. I myself am calling myself out here. I am so terrible at disconnecting from social media that I completely ignore those little reminders that tell you to take a break. And I have actually had to resort to completely deleting the apps, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, off of my phone. Like, I cannot have them on my phone. And I try, a big reason why I've been a lot more inconsistent to where from posting like 3 to 5 videos and posts daily on different social media, I'm like, you know, the same 3 to 5 things, but it's like a few days, a few weeks, or even a month apart, is because, like, I'm actively trying to get myself to start living my life. So instead of just, like, letting my life move around me, like, I'm trying to be an active player in my life. So my whole personality, again, I'm calling myself out, my whole personality used to be stuff I was learning in college, in National Geographic magazine. What it is now is, it's been a lot of TikTok. I had an ex-boyfriend tell me how annoying it was that I was constantly talking about TikTok and constantly showing people videos. 'Cause my love language has lately been that I will send you memes or, you know, videos. And I fully recognize, as someone who's been in a very difficult life, that sometimes I'm afraid of living, which, you know, I discussed, but I'm going back into what the script for this episode. So I'll be afraid of never having a flat stomach, so therefore I never do ab workouts. And I think that fear is that I can't work out enough to get flat abs, so why work out at all? I'll be afraid of losing friends, so I had previously kept to myself and allowed myself to get extremely lonely. I've been told by so many people, even therapists and mental health workers, that I should become a therapist. And even though I have a passion for helping people, There's fear that I won't be effective enough. There's fear that I'm going to say the wrong thing. There's fear that this could lead to burnout because I'm an empath, and very often my feelings and the feelings of other people are completely blurred, and I can't distinguish from what I'm feeling to what someone else is feeling. But fear of moving on, moving forward, and ultimately a fear that you're too old, too young, not pretty, or not interesting enough, not thin enough to be truly loved, it's completely normal. I, for example, know women in their late 30s who settle so quickly for men because they think they'll be too old to find someone. And as harsh as this is, I chuckle to myself knowing that there are so many young men who are dying to date an older woman. And we are, like, actively in a MILF era where women are, for some god-unknown reason, saying to themselves, if I'm not married by 40, I'll never marry at all. No. So I did go on a tangent, but I'm not just going to mention women. Like, I think it's important to mention men and their struggles. So kind of the struggle with men is, yeah, they are pressured into getting married and carrying on their family name. And when you do something like pressure a guy to get married and carry on his family name, all of the joy of parenthood is like literally being sucked out of you, because it becomes more about a legacy and a name than, you know, you wanted a child because you wanted to give someone unconditional love and possibly receive it in return, or you wanted to give the next generation a better life than you had. And when it comes to the pressure to get married, it's not very easy for LGBTQ men and women in persons, because a lot of times they don't want to offend their family, they don't want to offend God. They might be receiving financial support, which is very necessary in this day and age. And if they are to come out as their true gender identity, if they are to come out as their true sexual identity or sexual orientation, they risk losing financial support. They risk losing their family and their connections. So there probably are plenty of people out there who are married to someone that they cannot love, or are in a relationship or looking for a relationship to someone that they just don't have the love for because they're forced to. They don't have a choice. Now I'm going to switch gears and talk about women in abusive romantic relationships, although I kind of feel like we were headed that direction anyways. I have an analogy, so stick with me and I'll explain it. Let's say you're on a staircase that you were led to believe leads up to heaven. And I'm sorry for the wind. But when you get there, you're unsure of whether it's heaven or hell. You had the most lovely experience climbing those stairs and had so much anticipation for such a wonderful place. Then you start to feel like something is off, and that uncertainty of your destination gradually leads you to believe that you were lied to and that you have actually entered the gates of hell. Slowly, every single sign that you were wrong and that you were going the wrong way floods your brain. You're starting to see all the signs and deception you ignored, and you're starting to blame yourself. But when you turn to run back down that staircase to freedom, you find that the stairs have collapsed. Your toxic relationship is that staircase. Once bright with promise of a happily ever after, a journey so beautiful and promising that you were eager to be there, and the fact of it being hell rather than heaven is when the person you love can no longer hide who they truly are, and instead you're left with a broken person who is basically a monster. The staircase that collapsed, it's your self-esteem, it's your confidence, it's your strength, it's your independence. That staircase is all the friends and family members that toxic person you were with cut you away from. Like they destroyed your relationships, your staircase. It's all the dreams and possibilities you gave up to love that man, woman, person with every fiber of your being. And you're in the position that if you had to give up the whole world to make that person you love happy and kind, you do it without hesitation. And you did give up your world, your dreams, your friends, your family for someone you'd beg and bargain to love you back even a fraction of how much you loved them. When my therapist and I discussed the social media influencer that I had a crush on, see previous podcasts, then I obviously said nasty things, regretted the nasty things, wanted to delete the nasty things I said. Too late, because he saw them and blocked me. First off, the day he read my hateful message that I didn't get around to deleting, I actually did a ceremony of sorts. I can get into that at a later time. And in the process, I asked God to give me the right person. As I'm bisexual, that could be anyone. I also gave up the social media influencer to God, and in previous days, and through therapy, I've been thinking to myself, either A, I was trying to be the sole author of a love story, and love stories can only be co-authored. Regardless, if there's another person involved, you have to have a co-author. You could get into, if you're religious, that co-author is your higher power or higher powers. The other option was B, it's over for good, or C, God took this man away because I gave entirely too much of my identity, dreams, and potential to even a love interest. And I'm not ready to love someone as well as go after my dreams and passions of helping people. So it becomes less of him being, quote unquote, the one that got away, and more of me losing myself for someone who wouldn't even give me the time of day. There are some important things to remember. I'm going to say them slowly so they stick with you. Truth should never be sacrificed for illusion. Love should never be sacrificed for ownership. We will only ever own our own personal heart and no one else's. Love will eventually fade from not being even a choice we can make to taking everything we have to keep it alive. But when do we choose to love ourselves? When do we choose our dreams that could change the world? I lost a man to gain the ability to help others, and let's be honest, girls, I might not have had him in the first place. I'm not that delusional. I lost what I hoped was a love story for an even better love story. The story of falling so in love with my dreams that I didn't need a man anymore. And you might not think you have a dream or a passion, but don't sacrifice the truth of what you desire to give back for the illusions of someone who only takes, steals, and destroys you. That's a reference to a verse about the devil. See what I did there? It helped me to write down the lies that my abusive family had told me, and then write down the truth that in fact challenged or negated the lies that they had told me. A lot of my friends in toxic relationships have said to me that they wish they were more like me because I can get out of a toxic relationship and I can be independent. But what my friends don't realize is that I often struggle with people pleasing because I'm so intent on making people love me, and my independence has also led me to not being able to ask for help a lot of the time. I would say to anyone that if I can be independent, if I can be fearless and not need a man and follow my dreams, so can you. I want to say that I have been blessed with some really amazing friends. There was a lot of loneliness along the way, a lot of betrayal, a lot of regret. But once I gave myself over to trying to better myself, I started to see the universe give me the things, the people, the job I needed, and not the things I thought I needed. I guess the hindsight is 2020 has to drag into this. We talked about Disney Princess Syndrome, so I want to bring it up again. It's basically people who grow up on Disney movies and can identify with toxic caregivers, parents, guardians, aunts, uncles, grandparents, whatever. And they believe that a romantic relationship will be a redeeming factor, will bring joy, happiness, and the love that they longed for their whole life. Like, it's going to fix literally everything to fall in love with someone. So yeah, and I hate to tell this to women that you're not a princess. You're a queen. And sometimes a queen will reign alone. Sometimes a queen is going to be a warrior. Sometimes a queen is going to be a judge. Sometimes a queen is going to be a healer. And if you're a man or non-gendered person, same thing. You're a king, And ultimately, recovering from a broken heart and recovering from a toxic relationship is all about falling in love with yourself. And the more you fall in love with yourself, the less likely you are going to be in the next abusive relationship, or that you'll just be happy single. And it is noteworthy that a lot of women are not repeat offenders, but it is a pattern that their relationships are toxic. Their relationships are abusive. They go from one toxic relationship to another toxic relationship. And I understand that sometimes women did not have a choice in that cycle because they had some kind of trauma. They were raised extremely religious. And so for them, toxicity is literally second nature. They're more vulnerable. I'm sorry. I'm actually going to have to pause because I have to cough. Okay, I'm back. I am still battling a sinus infection, and also my hands are freezing because I'm literally recording this outside. So thank you so much. Did I miss something? Yeah, thank you so much for listening today. I do understand that I promised a different episode today. However, this was way more important because I know people who are currently in toxic relationships, and I feel like at one point everyone is going to be in a toxic relationship, and this was like a bigger message than anything I could share. If you liked what you heard, please consider liking, sharing, commenting something nice, and following this podcast. Episodes of this podcast will roughly be every 3 to 5 days, and topics are going to cover a wide range of subtopics related to personal growth, health, and wellness. Mental health is in there too, I'm not going to lie. My social media handles will be in the description of this episode, and if you would like to request an episode, or if you have an inspirational story or experience that you think would help someone else and you would like to be interviewed, I would love to interview you. Please reach out to me on social media. Thank you for listening, and do something that makes you smile today. And also, if he's toxic, hit him with a cast iron pan.